So 3, 2, 1. Hi everyone, Mind Masters Podcast, episode 1. I am Kevin Brown. This is us bringing along a long-awaited podcast on mindset and mental health. I've been looking forward to getting this off the ground for a long time. As many know, we were keen to get a good speaker in to kick us off. And I was quite clear for day one who I wanted to get along, a good friend of mine, someone that, you know, I've actually joined him on his chat before, and we've spoke openly about the subject of mindset and mental health many times. So I'm not going to steal too much thunder away from him, because that will take away from the magic chat that I'm hoping that we're going to have. But I'm really pleased to introduce Jason McGinn, who is, as I mentioned, a good friend that I've met over the last couple of years. But he's also, most importantly, a mental health ambassador for the charity Back Onside, and we'll make sure that we talk about that tonight as well, because I know it's very important to Jason's heart, and it's a charity that I admire very much. So let's hope our time management goes well tonight, Jason. I've got a fear that we're going to take it right to the brink, but I'm just going to let you basically introduce yourself briefly, and then we can take it from there, mate.
Right. Brilliant. Kev, first of all, thanks very much for having me on. I know this is your first episode, and it means a lot to you to get this up and running, and obviously it means a lot to me for you to invite me along and be part of this, so thanks very much.
No, my pleasure.
I'm just thinking, where do we even start out? Because obviously we've kind of met obviously through fads, through running, and I think the first sort of introduction was like we went for a run and then we got a chat, so I guess that's where our story started.
That's where our story starts, but who's Jason McGinn? So for people that's going to listen to this, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what we want to talk about, I mean, for people listening to this, maybe going out a run, you know, when this drops, they've got the headphones in, they're like, who is this guy that Kevin's talking to? Tell us, who is Jason?
So first and foremost, I'm a dad. I think that's the most important job I've got in life. I'm a dad to two fabulous kids who are 12 and 8, Rory and Ailey. So I'm a dad. Obviously, I'm separated from my missus, which will come up in story for my ex, for the kids' mum. So I'm a single dad for most of the time. I'm also a police officer, which I'll share that because that's part of my story and something that I think is important to sort of bring up. And as you said, I've been an ambassador for the mental health charity Back Onside. So in my spare time, I do a lot of work for them in terms of like raising awareness and helping to kind of share my own story about my mental health journey, and hoping through some of the challenges, hence how me and you know each other so well. So through my kind of fitness and running journey more than anything, I've always been sort of into fitness, but running's became a big part of my life and a big part of what I've done to sort of help myself. That's been a big part of my mindset, my mental health journey, and obviously how we got to sort of know each other, and again also why I became part of the charity was through starting up by doing challenges. So that's me in a nutshell, I suppose.
So born and bred Ayrshire lad?
Yeah. Auchinleck, originally lived in Auchinleck.
We'll no hold that against you.
Nah, listen, God's wee acre up there. So I was born and raised in Auchinleck. Moved about a wee bit, so I've done a bit of travelling in my time. So moved about Ayrshire with my mum and my dad, and then I've eventually kind of settled here in Kilmarnock. Spent a wee bit of time living in America, just as part of my own journey growing up, and so been about a few places, Kev, but Ayrshire lad.
And you mentioned there the most important job, which you know it's echo that you're a dad. So what's the family consist of? Who's the kids? To introduce them.
Rory, who's 8, he's the wee character of the family, shall we say, and Ailey's 12, so she just turned 12 before Christmas there. They two are my wee sidekicks for the most part when I get them. So we're pretty flexible in terms of we've got a kind of 50-50 split with the kids, kind of co-parenting, and it works out quite well. And when I've got them, that's my time.
Just like a side note, I love that your boy shares the same willingness to be on the end of a picture, because I notice every time I see you posting pictures of your boy, it reminds me of Ma Lewis when he was younger. he's always got a hand on the face, or you're like, can I just get a picture? Dad just wants a picture, you know. But no, everyone, there's got to be something happening.
Oh, he hates it. He hates it. And I find that, and like, I almost think to myself, should I be taking pictures if he doesn't enjoy it? And I've tried to explain to him, like, see, when I was a wee boy, you develop pictures and you'd reel of albums and photographs, which we don't have anymore. So it's like phones, pop-ups on social media, things that are the memories that pop up. Of my recollection of things that have happened with me and the kids. That's my wee kind of photo album, if you like. So always try and get pictures of them, even if they don't enjoy it.
No, it's a brilliant point. Like, people say you take pictures of absolutely everything, and I'm trying to say, I remember a memory of going, I don't know if you can remember this, but I remember I'd go to my mum's house, or my late nana's house, and there would be loads of photo albums, loads and loads of stuff, and you would sit in the ground and you go through all these funny photos and stuff like that, and everyone had a story. And then I remember splitting up for my son's mum and things like that, and I went away and I had nothing, no pictures of him, and you know, it wasn't a bitter comment, you know, that they kept what pictures there was. I left with only memories up here, and I'm now like pictures, because one day it'll be all you'll have.
100%, yeah. That's me. I think that's an important thing, because I love to look. I'm very much don't live in the past, but I like to look back and reflect every now and again. It's great to see these wee things and just see how even they've progressed, how I've progressed, and as a family we've done that. So it's great to have them.
Love it. So that's a nice little introduction. So, I mean, how you and I, we were like magnets, I think, if I try and describe it. I think it was a bit of fate. The second we came in contact with one another, that we were quite quickly aware of how aligned we were about, I guess, with the subject of why I've put this thing together. And I know you do a lot of similar stuff as well. You know, let's dive in. Where does Jason's story with mental health begin? When does he become aware of his journey with mental health? And let's just see where that leads us.
And I think that's important, when I became aware of it, because even now I'm still noticing things. And I even spoke to my counsellor not that long ago. I've not been doing it for a while, actually. I've been pretty good, but I just kind of on and off conversation I had with my counsellor was, do you know something? See, looking back now, because I wasn't aware back then, I've probably always had something bubbling away, but it wasn't until sort of big things happened in my life that really brought it to the fore, and that's when things obviously kind of became really difficult for me, so to speak. So probably a good place to start was it's not a good place to start, but it's where we'll start. But it was probably the breakdown of the relationship was the first thing. But there was things that led up to that, and that's where the real journey began for my mental health, Kev. So as I said earlier, and this is why I always introduce that. So I'm in the police, and I worked in child protection for a few years. And just prior to actually getting into child protection, I was supposed to be starting the CID. And this is, I think, fundamentally, this is where, for me, things really started to kind of ramp up a wee bit. So what happened was, I had been working, like, I was waiting to get into the CID, and I'll never forget this. This is like one of these times, there's always going to be an incident or something that somebody's attended, and you attend loads of stuff. But there's always going to be one or two that you'll never forget. So for me, it was this incident where me and my colleague were working, and there was a call come out for an unresponsive baby. It was a baby that shouted across, and we were literally around the corner. So we shouted in, the worst thing like you could ever want to hear. So we make our way there, and we're there even before the paramedics had got there. We're literally around the corner, so we get there pretty quickly. And it's the first time I'd encountered I'd been to a few kind of sudden deaths and stuff before, but it's the first time I'd ever encountered a child in that circumstance. So it was pretty horrific, as you can imagine. And it was a scene of kind of complete carnage. There was a mum just screaming. There was obviously there was a brother who was sat. I can always remember him sitting at a dinner table, a kind of breakfast bar, if you like, with a wee bowl of cereal. looking completely lost. This wee boy was lost. And what I couldn't get out of my head was the fact that I could tell that he was looking for somebody. He didn't know really what was going on. I don't think he grasped what was happening. But he had found his wee brother in the cot, unresponsive. He had went through and told his mum, and his mum had just completely lost it, as you can imagine. So it was just a scene of complete carnage, and it was one of them where the wee boy, I felt sorry for, the mum I felt sorry for, but you've got to be completely professional with the fact that children shouldn't just die, and that's exactly what's happened, so you have to deal with that. So that was kind of the scenario we're faced with. Then further to that, the dad had just had a phone call to tell him, and the mum was too upset to speak. She was hysterical. So see, he did this kind of garbled phone call and didn't know what he was coming back to. So when he came in the door, I had to try and stop him and tell him what had happened, and he was just going berserk. So I just kind of stood back and kind of left him to it. So anyway, that whole scenario, everything about it was just really, really a difficult circumstance to kind of deal with. And what happened was the kids were literally the same age as my two. So the wee boy was like 2 or 3 years old. Big brother was about 6 or 7, and that was roughly the same ages as my two at that time. So there was a kind of very similar age gap. So as much as you say leave your work at home, leave your work there, don't take it home, it was very difficult for me to sort of separate that. It wasn't until, because you've got to be quite professional, where you've got to be getting details, you need to find out who's in the house, you need to find out everything about it. You've got to try and get as much information you can out of this mum who's dealing with the worst scenario anybody could ever imagine. So you're trying to get details off her, calm her down, and it's just not a great situation. And it wasn't until I actually sat in the car and went to drive home after the shift that day that the adrenaline had dropped, everything had just kind of calmed down, and I just thought, fuck, what has just happened? And it was just, I was just all over the place with that. So it was, the drive home was just a bit of a kind of, it was just difficult. It just put me in a bad place. So at that time, my relationship, I should mention I had a stepson at the time as well. I still got a stepson, so I've still got a good relationship with him, actually, Callum. So like, he was at home with the kids and my partner at the time. So when I went up the road, it'd been a summer's day, it'd been a nice day, and the two kids had been out at the park with their mum. And because it'd been nice and warm, they'd been out enjoying it with their shorts and t-shirts and stuff on. And what happened was, when I get in, I can't tell her. I can't have that conversation. Oh, how was what the day? Sit down, wait to tell you that, because you can't. It's just not a conversation you're going to have. You can't explain all that. You've just got to say, listen, wasn't it a great day? Can you just give me a wee bit of space? And she kind of didn't get that, and it was like, bro, what you grumpy for? Just tell me. I says, I can't, and I'm not going to offload that. It wasn't the right place to do it. It wasn't the right thing to do. So I was never going to explain it. So I just said, listen, do you know what? I would just like to see the kids. I just wanted to see my kids and know that they were safe and well, and get a wee cuddle off them. So Rory comes down, and I'm sitting in the living room on the couch, just kind of spaced out a wee bit. And in he comes and sits beside me, and he's been eating a blue ice lolly that's melted and went over his wee hands and lips, and he's got his pajamas on because it's spilt in his clothes. So the first image that pops into my head is this wee fella that I've just seen in the house with the blue lips, and I freaked out. I was like, take him away, get him out of the room. And this started a bit of a kind of argument. I'd be like, why, 2 minutes ago you didn't want to speak, now you want to see the kids, now you're telling them. And I says, I can't talk about it, you're just going to have to take him away. And I just left the house. I just went out and gave myself some time. That was the kind of trigger for a lot of sort of arguments about stuff like that. And it was difficult because I didn't want to bring that into the home, and I didn't want to have to keep explaining, like, this is what happened. I was always just, it wasn't very nice. It's not something you want to hear about. Let's just leave it at that. So that caused quite a lot of friction between us, and there was a kind of a build up. And as I went into like the child protection actual job, I was getting that quite a lot. We dealt with quite a lot of sudden deaths of infants. We dealt with quite a lot of kind of child abuse, as you can imagine. So there was a lot of that stuff going on, stuff that I would never come home and speak about. In the interim, I did Thai boxing. So Thai boxing was a big part of what my kind of my release was back then. But this was before the kind of running days. So I always had some sort of fitness, and Thai boxing was a big thing for me. So I would go out to the gym, and I was going out quite a lot, but it was a great release. I was hitting pads, I was sparring with folk, and it just get that. It was just an amazing way to kind of relieve the tension, get a bit of a stress release.
Were you aware at that point that you and I would be quite comfortable in identifying what a release is now? We know what a release is. We understand like much more about what the chemicals, how it's all working. But were you aware at that point, or were you just was it an escape as such? Or
bit of both, to be honest, Kev. So I'll say now it was a release, but back then it was just I need to get to the gym.
Yeah.
I didn't know what. I just knew that was my thing, and I loved doing it, and it gave me a wee bit of a break again. See that whole hitting, as I said, like hitting the pads, getting the stress out. I see that now. It was a release, but back then I probably would never have called it that. I mean, I just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A wee bit of an escape. It was something different.
Yeah.
So I had sort of that going on, and then I actually kind of heard through. I get spoken to at work, and there was an issue with somebody at the gym, and I got asked to stop going to the gym, and I was like, that's my thing. Like I need to be going there because I've not really got another release. So it ended up, it was a bit of an issue, and I got asked to step away from the gym, which I had to do. And that just compounded everything around about me because I was just angry. I just started becoming a bit more stressed about everything. I didn't have this release. And it was actually caused me a wee bit of problem. When I stepped away from the gym, there was a few wee issues, but it was stuff that was happening kind of bubble away in the background. Again, it was stuff I can really talk about. And so it was just another thing I was keeping to myself. I was holding in, and I had nobody to really open up to about it all. And it was just bubbling away and getting bit. And as you know yourself, you keep filling up, topping up that glass a wee bit more, and eventually it's going to overflow. And that's what it felt like. So when this was going on, the relationship was just sort of getting worse and worse. The arguments were happening more frequently. I was getting stressed about that. But one thing that I never knew how to do then, and this sounds daft, but I didn't know how to open up and speak to anybody about it. I was never somebody that would turn around and say, I don't feel great, actually. I feel quite angry and stressed out about stuff, or things are getting to me and I don't know where to go with them. I just went along with it because I thought, you don't speak about that. Don't be a fanny, get on with it. And that was my attitude, 100%. I was in the police, I did fighting, so you should be able to deal with shit like that. This isn't something that you need to ask for help for. What are you talking about? Get on with it. So it came to, there was a charity football game between Auchinleck and Cumnock, over 35s, and I played in this game. And as soon as the game finished, I got away from work to go and play in this game. And so when I finished the game, Missy's away with the kids, I snuck up the back gate. What do we do? What the guys, especially in Scotland, the West Coast of Scotland, do? You go and get steaming when things are annoying you, or you look for something, as you say, an escape. So my escape that day was, she's no in, I'm not going to tell her, I'm just going to go out and get drunk. That's what I did. I played this game of football and got absolutely blind drunk, steaming drunk. And I ended up having a wee bit of a fight with a guy in the boozer, basically. And it became there was a bit of a scene in the pub. And I had to leave. And I get taken up the road with somebody. And again, I was obviously steaming drunk, loud, shouting the street. Woke up, my missus, who was up for work in the morning. And I just woke up the next day with this horrible, horrible feeling hanging over me, like, oh shit, what have you done? I knew loads of folk in the pub that I'm thinking, this could get back to my work. There was just loads of things, Kev. It was like, alcohol, as we know, is a depressant. So that feeling, I don't know if people talk about having the fear. Well, it's actually a mild form of depression. That's what it is, because that's what it onsets, this horrible feeling. So it was all hanging over me. So I remember I phoned her up at her work just to apologise and say, I'm really sorry for everything that's been going on. I feel regretful about what's happened. I got into a bit of bother at the pub last night, blah, blah, blah. She's like, aye, I heard you. By the way, that's it. We're done. Bye. See you. Can't take it anymore. I'm like, all right, can we talk about it? No, made up my mind, we're done. I was like, right, okay, no bother. And we were obviously still staying at home. And it was maybe about a month later where we hadn't patched anything up, but we're still living together, that I found out there'd been another guy sort of texting her and she'd been kind of meeting up with. So this was just everything. It just became absolute bomb was ready to explode inside me. That's what it was, just this build up of pressure and tension. And it went on for so long, and I hadn't spoke to anybody. This is the key to this, and this is why I always speak about this, is like, I had never spoken to anybody. Now, I was turning up from my work feeling like shit. I was holding all this within, even stuff at my work I wasn't getting home and speaking to anybody about. So I was just gathering everything up, and it just became like this pressure cooker that I was just ready to, like, the lid was just ready to blow off it. And I didn't know what to do. And I've been sort of drip feeding me stuff to a mate at work. But see, even if he was asking me, is everything all right? Aye, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. So I wasn't, and I had an opportunity. I had probably loads of opportunities to open up and speak to folk. I could have contacted other mates to tell them, but I was keeping it all to myself because I didn't think that's what we did. I didn't think that's what guys did, was open up and speak. So I went on like this for months, and eventually the feelings just became too hard to deal with. And it was like the stuff with her, with the relationship. I felt like worthless, and I know that's a phrase you'll hear all the time when people speak about the kind of depression and when they're in low moods and struggling with things that happen around about them. So it was this feeling of complete worthlessness. I thought back about the night out when I just went and get drunk, and I'm thinking, who are you to do that? Why are you doing that? And then you're bringing other people into the whole mix, and that's not right. So that made me feel quite bad about what I'd done to other folk. I felt like I was failing as a dad, because I was panicking about maybe losing my job over the stuff with the gym, over this silly carry on in the pub. I'd lost my relationship, and for me, I was at the end of a road that I didn't know that there was a corner in, if that makes sense. It was just a dead end, and there wasn't like anywhere to turn. And there was. It just I didn't see that. That's the point. So the point I always make is there is always places to turn, but you need to look for them and you need to ask for them. And I didn't. So I got to the stage where I felt that the right thing to do. So this I think this is important as well. Maybe just for understanding for people is like I'll often hear the words selfish and maybe that they're not thinking straight when people were thinking about suicide. But for me, my thinking was that no being here was the right thing to do for other folk. So I didn't want to be an embarrassment to my kids. I felt as though I'd done a great job up until that point, and then I'd fucked up. And that's what I didn't want remembered as, and I didn't want them to feel that way.
Sometimes it's the clearest you've ever thought that I've heard people talking about when they've, and I've spoken with loads of people that have had suicidal thoughts over the last few years because of the things they've been involved in. And what you've just said there is really eloquently put. I mean, I would say 95% of those people have says it's actually the clearest I've ever thought.
Right. I think you get to a stage, and I'll be pretty honest. I don't know if I was quite there. Yep. Which thankfully I don't know if I was quite there. But that felt like my only option, and it felt like the right thing. So at that stage I was like, nah, fuck it. You've got nowhere to turn. What can you actually do? And you've made such a mess of life, made such a mess of everything. Let's just finish it. So there was a day where the kids were getting put into school and nursery. The wee man was still at nursery, and then the childminder would pick him up, and Ailey would go to after school club until the ex-missus finished her work. And I was a kind of late start that day, so I would be at work until later on at night. So it meant that nobody other than my work colleagues maybe be looking for me. And I thought that's the day that, because the kids are safe, the kids are getting picked up, and that everybody's looked after. It's only me that is a concern for. And at this point, I wasn't really given a shit about me or anything that happened to me. So I walked the kids down to school. I'm pretty certain it was a Tuesday. I don't know why that sticks in my mind, but I'm pretty certain it was a Tuesday. But I walked him down to school. I was pretty scruffy, just in my old trackies on. I'd just got up. My appearance didn't matter at all, obviously. So I just walked them down to school, put them in, made sure they were getting picked up, checked with the after school club, and then I went home and I went into my garage and I had a wee look to see where I was going to hang this rope from. That was my plan. And that's what I thought. I'm going to do this walk through to make sure it's all fine. That's exactly how it's going to be done. And we'll just see what happens. As I said, like, I probably wasn't thinking that clear just then, but that was as close as I came at that point. Was that's what's going to happen. And the minute that reality struck me, that I was stood in my garage and that my life would end, the minute I I put that rope over the rafters and tied it around my neck was overwhelming. I can't. Oh, I know this isn't a funny topic, right? But I laugh slightly because at that point I went into my living room and I must have laid on the floor in great for what felt like eternity, but it was maybe, I don't know how long it was for. I just lay there, I just curled up in a ball. And I always remember thinking back, like, see when you feel pretty fucking worthless, it's bad when you can't even do the one thing you thought would work. Do you know what I mean? Because that was my one option was let's just end things. And I couldn't even do that. And I'm like, fuck, right, what do you do now?
Yeah.
And thankfully for me, I did, because not everybody gets that point. Not everybody has something to hang on to. And it was the thought of my kids. It was the thought of, fuck me, are you really that bad? You want your kids to not have you here? They need to deal with that. And luckily I still had that wee bit of clarity that I didn't want that to happen. So that's when I sort of asked for help. And I went into work. Still hadn't told anybody anything that was happening. And I had never told anybody about that whole walkthrough thing and about the kind of the fact I was looking to end my life till about 2 or 3 years down the line. I was still awful embarrassed about it, and I didn't want anybody really to know that had been the case.
Is that through the fear of judgment of how people would react to you, Jason?
I think so, mate. I think so. I think I was shamefully. I still felt. I think I still had a stigma about mental health.
Yeah.
So personally, I still seen a stigma about mental health. So I still thought I was the sort of the weak person to need to ask for help. That people, do you know something? I was actually worried I might lose my job, as in like where I was working in child protection. Oh well, if he's thinking about suicide, how can he safely come into work? I was worried about all these things, and I didn't really want him to know. And it was the embarrassment factor, like what are people going to think about him? That all these things have went wrong for him, and then he was thinking about taking his own life. What a loser! Do you know that was my kind of mentality.
Yeah.
So at that point, but again, I wasn't speaking to him. I still didn't think it was right to open up and speak. So the whole point about that was, I wasn't in the right place to be fully aware or understand mental health, let alone my own. So like I still didn't feel like I had a good appreciation of how it can affect people and what you should do, the signs to look out for, and how you can be aware of it and help folk. So I went and spoke to one of the boys at my work, and he's like, is everything all right? And I was like, genuinely, no, I'm like not in a good place. And I end up speaking to the gaffer, and they got me on to sort of counselling, and I get like 3 sessions. And then I thought the first one I probably cried most of the way through it, just explaining what was going on. The second one, we did a wee bit of exploring. And I think, like I've mentioned this before, that was probably the first time that I brought up my birth dad. I've never ever met, never known. And that's an embarrassment I've carried my whole life. What you might think it's daft to think that's an embarrassment, or why has that never been, but I've never really explored it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always known, but it's been a kind of taboo subject I've never really spoke about or explored. My dad, I actually remember him and my mum getting married, and I remember the adoption certificate that I changed my name and all my daughters at primary school, so I remember all that. But I'd never ever sort of met my dad. And I think when we spoke about it in sort of the counselling sessions, brought out how I struggled with relationships, because as a young child in that 0 to 3 period, I had this abandonment that somebody decided that having me in the life wasn't for them. And that's where things have maybe been a struggle for me later on in life, that an unconscious thing that I've just known about, that because I've never dealt with that. So we can explore that a wee bit. And that sort of led on to this whole journey about trying to find out who I was, what made me feel the way I did, trying to understand my mental health better. But I guess about a year down the line, when I started doing, this is when obviously I met you and Fire's your dad's, and I actually remembered, I think you might have been the first person I told actually, when we started running, and I was like, Kev, I want to do this challenge. My mate was a patron for Back Onside, and I'd been to one of their events, heard all the stuff they did, and I was sitting in awe at this charity that helped people and offered counselling, but they needed like funds to come in, and I thought, right, I'm going to help them. No knowing that I still needed a lot of fucking help, but I wasn't aware of that just then. So I decided to do this challenge when I started running, and I think me and you went to Donald and did a couple of a
Yep.
couple of laps and like 2 or 3, I think we did like 30k or something.
Aye.
And that's the furthest I'd ever ran in my life.
I know.
And I was like, I'm going to run this West Island Way in a couple of days and climb Ben Nevis. And
That's right.
never to have ran more than 10k in like June, and I'm doing this in September. It was madness. But it was one of these things where the whole journey I've had through like mental health and like sort of fitness has been, you need to realize how strong you can be and how you can actually, and I don't just mean strong as in like you can fight everyone off, but being able to just be resilient towards things. Like, I'm never going to be the fittest guy in the world or the fastest, but I will be determined enough to keep going because I feel that there's something inside me now that I've realised there's a bit of a fighter in there, somebody that doesn't want to just give up. So that kind of led to this whole journey through like starting to run and push myself to these challenges. And obviously that's how I then became involved with Back Onside. And it was sort of through them that I took a wee dip again, and I hadn't really noticed, and I didn't know what to do about it because I was like, right, I'm doing this running now. Things are going all right at work. And like me and the missus had separated by this point, and I was doing my own thing, and I was like, right, so why am I still feeling this way? But as we all know, mental health and physical health are very similar, and like you need to work at it. If you're not working on it, if you're not trying to improve it, it can lapse. You can go through cycles, as I often do. I go through dips where nothing needs to trigger it. I just hit a really low point, and I've just got to see it through, and there's no a lot I can do about that. So this led me to getting counselling through Back Onside, who have been fantastic, and it's led to a kind of great relationship with Libby and the charity, where I've been able to have sort of help on tap, if you like, and in return I've done a lot of stuff now to kind of give back for the help and support that they've gave me, and it's just been a kind of like an ongoing journey, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a kind of whistle stop tour of where I've been. And
so you've led it nicely, and we're going to come back to a couple. We'll come back to a couple of things about the current day, and I liked what you were saying there about. I liked what you said about how your mental health will hold no quarter if you don't deal with the maintenance parts and you know, and I think we're already tapping into part of what your maintenance is. But I always say, like, it's funny when something goes wrong with the car. All of us go, I can't believe that's, you know, that you know, the tires kind of down, or I'm having issues with the engine, stuff like that. But all of us most of us, sorry, there are some people who do take good care of their car, but most of us don't, from day to day or week to week, bother checking anything in their car. We know we should, but we don't. But when it starts to give us problems and it needs to get into the garage because of the things that we've neglected, we wonder why it's happened. And for a lot of people, and I think you and I have probably, like everything else, we've probably talked about this as well, but you're not doing the things that you know are good for your mental health, or you are, and you maybe just take your eye off the ball on one little thing and something sort of catches you from the side, and then you go, how did that happen? And then you go, well, I've not been doing this, or I've not been to see this, or the key one that you've just been touching heavily on is, I've not been speaking, I've been shutting up and stuff. And I just think it is an important thing to like put out there. You know, when you start to become aware of the things that you and I are now very acutely aware, what are our maintenance things that looks after us? When other people who listen to this, I want to just to like labour that point a little bit. When you start to become aware of what your maintenance things are, your go-to things, make sure you keep tapping into them. And when things start to, remember what they are, because they could quite quickly get you back on track.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. And I think like I always, like, anytime I do any like talks or stuff we're Back Onside and we do like the changing room chats, etc., always make that exact reference. Listen, we've done a few to like football clubs in particular, and I bet you on a Monday morning there's a queue of people want to see the physio for something, right? You'll all be standing there saying, I took a wee knock, my hamstring's a bit tight. There's no difference with your mental health. There's no difference with it. Like, see if there's something not quite firing, if you're not feeling quite yourself, why are we not quick to put our hand up and say that? And why do we not look at things like as you're touching on there, see if you've took a wee knock, stretch it off. Maybe go for a wee light run. Maybe get a massage. Do something that's going to encourage and improve what the physical aspect is. Your mental health's the same. See if you're feeling a bit stressed. Maybe give yourself a bit of time out. Have a bit of self-care. Do a bit of meditation. Go out for a wee quick run. Do something that's going to check in with where you're at mentally. And it's not a difficult thing. Do you know something? This is another point, Kev, just while I remember it in case I forget. I did do a talk recently. And what I was saying is, we talk about mental health awareness. Now, you're not telling me there's a person on this planet that's not aware of mental health, right? So we're beyond that. We're beyond awareness of mental health. We're all aware of it. What I think we should be shifting towards is mental health understanding, like knowing what can we all do collectively to look out for one another, because people are still scared of it. And this was a great point. Somebody said to me, right, I was saying, like, see if somebody's not feeling great, why not just ask the question? You're looking a bit down today, or is everything all right? An open question, something you want to talk about. See if they don't, fair enough. But they might just be looking for somebody to open up that chat. And somebody says to me, I've got a question. What if they open up and they speak to you? But a lot of people will be scared in case they get that. I says, I get that, right? And he says, because we're no mental health professionals, we can't deal with that. I said, well, let me reframe that then. You see somebody hobbling along the corridor, would you ask them if they tuck their leg? Aye, 100%. I says, could you fix it? Are you a doctor or a physio? Because see if you know what you're asking for, because you're concerned about them. You might signpost them, and you might say to them, you should go and get that seen to you. This is the exact same thing. If somebody you see looks as if they're displaying signs of being a bit down or mood, whatever that may be, you might just want to ask the question, and you're not there to fix it. You're just there to say, I've recognised it. If you need a wee ear, I'm here. And do you know what? I don't know how to fix that for you, but I could maybe help you or signpost in the right direction. I think that awareness and understanding is where we're shifting that to. But actually, it just come into my head just when you mentioned that. No,
I absolutely love it. And with a risk of going off in a tangent, which this is always a risk with us. That makes me, as you're talking, I'm thinking of the workplace. I'm thinking of the workplace in particular. We know that the biggest cost to business, the biggest cause of absenteeism is poor mental health, stress and depression, etc., etc. And there's a lot of good things happening in the workplace. So we've got workplace mental health first aiders are becoming more of a feature, and we're doing lots of good things. We put up some posters and we do some general stuff. But the general population in the workplace it's not the mental health first aider that's going to see on shift today that Kevin's struggling.
Yeah.
It's going to be Kevin's colleagues. But it's Kevin's colleagues that aren't going to ask, are you all right? They're just going to go, what are you acting like that for? Or he's been a dick, shouting as he's in that locker room or whatever it is. So the general population, so you've got these things in place, but the general population, the people that are around, the people who are close, maybe like a moment like you were having, they see it, they see the behaviours, they see the things that are out of sorts, but they're terrified of asking. They're terrified. But I'm like trying to get, and I guess it's quite raw and shock tactics sometimes, but I'm like, well, would you rather ask, is he or she okay, and be the intervention that you can point them towards the mental health first aider, or vice versa? Or would you rather hear that you didn't have the conversation and that they won't be coming back to work because something's happened?
Yeah.
And I think folk like us are bold enough to have those types of conversations that you're having with the players, and I'll try and have in work and things like that. Maybe with a manager who says, I've been really concerned about this guy or this woman for a while. Okay, I'm wondering if you could have a word. Well, whoa, wait a minute. Have you had a word? Because when I arrive, that's going to probably set their mental health back as well, because I'm a complete stranger. Have you had a conversation to say, I notice that you're not yourself. Let's go and grab a coffee.
Exactly.
And you can be the difference. And yeah, I love that you've said that, and it's totally triggered me that there's so many missed opportunities.
There is, and I think it is this wariness and for me, it's still because there's a stigma attached to what do we do with that? Well, what do you do? What do you do if you notice somebody that's hurt them? See, if you're playing fives and somebody has a bad tackle, you're not the physio, but you would tell them, you would maybe support them, you would tell them we're going to phone an ambulance, you would get them to it's the same idea. All we're doing is being there for somebody, as you say, that mental health first aid. That's what is it? The first aid, the first person that they come to that can maybe say, well, all I want to say to you is I can listen. I don't know how we're going to fix this, but can I help you? And that's it. That's sometimes all we need. And that's all we're asking people to do. Just be the person that's all right with having that chat.
Yeah. Well, that we could talk about that bit alone forever, but listen, just for people tuning in, let's give them a little insight into the madness that you've got up to, because I know you love talking about this, and I know I love hearing about it, so it makes it perfect. So you were touching on it a minute ago, during your journey with Back Onside and your newfound love for running, this new release that you've found. Tell people a little bit about some of the mad stuff you've been getting up to.
Aye, so obviously the first one was the West Highland Way in Ben Nevis in 48 hours, and that was just that was mad. When I think back, that
was mad.
I genuinely, and I find this quite amusing that I look back through, not even my Strava. I didn't even have Strava. I don't think. I look back at my Instagram and I had put up a post in July saying my furthest run to date, and it was 14 kilometers. And I did that run in September, which was like a breakdown of like 42 mile and 54 or something, over two runs, and then obviously the climb. And then that was actually Back Onside's second birthday that year. So when it came to the third birthday, I thought, right, do something with the number 3. What can we do? So they'd actually come up with this idea that they'd asked people to run 3K, donate £3. So I thought, well, I'll run 33.3 kilometers 3 times, and that's like 100K pretty much. I could do that. So that was my kind of next one. And then we did the Goggins one, was just a completely random one. It was coming into the new year. I'm not a big fan of the new year, and I thought, I'm going to do something for the bells, but it would be something a wee bit unique, something a bit different. Let's do the Goggins 4448. So most people will know that, but running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So we did that, but that was the year of the Back Onside's 4th birthday, which was in 2022. So the big and I can't even remember, this was a throwaway comment that was made, that somebody said to me, what about Wembley to Hampden? Think you could run it? So, well, we'll find out.
Do you know? I'm dying to know. Do you know who was responsible for this comment? Who's getting the blame?
I think it was actually Libby. I think we were talking about it. I think so. We had like a team meeting, and we were sat in the team, a wee kind of team get together, and we were talking about stuff. And one of the things was like fundraising. And they were saying there was a couple of guys. Coxie ran like was it the Spartan Ultra, the 50K?
He did the Spartan Ultra, yeah.
Did that with the weighted vest on, the 20 or 30 kilo weighted vest, or whatever it was. And somebody else was going to be doing one. I says, well, I've not really thought what my challenge will be this year, but I would like to obviously go with the theme 3. It was the 33.3 for 3 rounds for year 3, and then this year if we get something with 4. So we're coming up with a couple of ideas, and I'm sure it was Libby that mentioned what's the distance between Wembley and Hampden, and I don't even know how that came up. I don't know where it came from. I was like, well, I don't know, but let's try it then. And that just snowballed. As soon as the seed was planted, I was like, I'm going to do that. And I looked at I'd actually seen a boy had done it for Glasgow, because I was Googling it to try and find out, is there routes, is there like an official time, has anybody done this? There must be something. There was a lot of people that had maybe kind of walked it or cycled, and I seen one boy had done it, and he had done like 14 marathons in 14 days, which is what it sort of equated to. And I was like, I thought, I'm not taking 14 days, 2 weeks a while. So I thought, right, let's break that down again. Let's go like 40 mile a day, roughly, and that's the 400 miles, and that gets us like 10 days. That'll be enough. And that was how that sort of came about. So that was just crazy. And I don't, like, to be fair, the madness of it, that was like the whole lack of planning. Well, I'm just thinking, just turn up and run. That's all I need to think about. Never. I'd only just bought a watch that could actually download maps on and routes and stuff, and the watch ran out of battery in day 1 after 20 mile. we didn't have anywhere. We had actually got a motorhome sponsored to us, and we didn't have anywhere to plug it in the first night. We slept in a church car park with no electricity, nothing. Woke up the next day, and it was just, I'm going, what have I done here? I'd done the first 10 or 12 miles, and then I set off myself. My mate ran with me like for the first 12 miles, and then he got the camper van, the motorhome, to drive it to the next point for me. And I'd left him about 2 miles in the middle of London, and I get run over by a cyclist. And I'm like, this is a disaster. This bike just plowed into me day one, and I thought, man. My battery ran out, my watch, as I say, but I was on a canal route. So when you're on the canal path, you know, I just have to stay on this, and eventually I'll fall. So that, I mean, the whole journey though, see, to come up through, even I ran in, so you run right through the middle of Manchester, that was a halfway point, that was 200 miles. And when I ran into the middle of Manchester, I'm right through the city. And obviously I did the Manchester Marathon a couple of months before it. But the month before it actually was in April. We ran the Manchester Marathon in April. So there was a couple of boys went down and done that. So I'm video calling them saying, remember this hotel? Remember we get the tram there? So that was a bit of a buzz. I loved that. And then obviously when I get further up the country, a couple of people came and met me. The day you video, I remember because I was getting loads of messages and it was amazing. So every day when I got a chance, I would just spend the morning getting my phone out, because mentally it drained the life at me.
Yeah.
And I remember getting to day 7 and I thought, I can't do this anymore. And it was more a bit of fatigue was kicking in. I realised the gravity of how far I still had to run, because I remember actually running near kind of Stoke, and I felt as though I'd been running for ages. It was like day 3 or something, and I felt as though I'd just been running for ages. And when I looked at the map, I'm like, I've moved there, and I've got to get, and I was like, oh, you've got to be joking me, man. It just felt like miles and miles, which it was obviously. But then the day when I was going through the messages and I seen that you were live doing this video, and I'm like, I jumped on.
That's
and
right.
McCulloch was there, and Alison McIntyre, who I used to work with, and then I met some of the guys as I get further up, and it was just that whole buzz of getting into Gretna, passing the border, coming up, everything about it was incredible.
See, the challenge itself, right? Like, you've ran from Wembley to Hampden, right? The challenge itself could, and how incredible it was. When I had you in the video, I was just in complete awe. I was like, it blew my mind, because I'm on my own journey in terms of what's possible for someone who's just started. This taps us in nicely to mindset, actually. So I'm on my own journey in terms of what's possible in the last, I'm like you, late bloomer into the running game and stuff like that. I was a late bloomer into fitness period. So each year I'm trying to push myself a bit further, and I'm interested in what that takes out of me in terms of my mindset. Where, because a lot of people don't understand that a big part of when you go to extremes, the fitness, there is only so much you can train for. And then something else takes over. What I'd love to know, kind of briefly, I would like to know, where did the mind start to crack on this challenge, truly start to crack? And what, because I remember watching your videos going, like, I would be sitting there like this, watching you going, my mate's struggling here. Like, I saw, there was a highlight reel back Onside we do, and I urge anybody to go back and look at back Onside social medias, because Jason's event was really well covered. But I remember watching you and going, he's on a journey of its own here. Mentally, he is on a journey here, because I could see you. There was moments where you were really, really tearful, and you were going to places that, in my mind, you possibly hadn't been. What was that like? When did that kick in, and how bad did that get?
I'll tell you, do you know, one of the worst ones was day 1, and that's no word of a lie. Day 1 was one of the worst ones, where even the drive down was great, because it was all the buzz, the excitement, calls, having a laugh. We'd been given a sort of platter for Bella Luca, the wee coffee shop in Kilmarnock. So they'd made us up a wee platter, and honestly, there was loads of sandwiches and cakes and everything. We must have tanned the majority in the way down, like, get another cake. And it was a great laugh and everything. And then when we got there, and as I said, the reality kicked in, and there was a couple of wee things started to go wrong, and straight away I'm thinking, right, this is real. This is actually real. And then like day one, I kind of got out of the way, and I was meant to do about 50 miles in day one. So obviously, as I said, it equated to roughly 40 miles a day. But the way it was working, it was some days were slightly longer. I think the first couple of days were longer days. And I got to a certain point, even in day one, I was like, I don't know if I can go any further. And I think I did like 42 miles or something like that. And I was like, that's probably my limit for the day. That's going to be my limit every day because, and I don't know how I'm going to work that. Because how do you make it up? You can't. Do you know what I mean? I'm not adding an extra day on. I'm not like, so there was wee things like that started to creep in. And I think what I will say is people have asked me this before saying, did you have good days and bad days? And I would say no. Every day had good points and bad points.
Aye.
So every day was up and down. And it was like, you'll know yourself, Kev, having been in big mammoth events and huge runs where you'll get wee points where you get a wee adrenaline rush or something's going great and you're like, this is magic. And I had to keep reminding myself that. I reminded myself so many times that, what are you doing today? What have you got to do? Have you got kids to pick up? Have you got your work to go to? No, you don't. All you have to do is keep moving until you get to the end point and you're going to enjoy it. Because you need to, because if you don't, what's the point? What's the point in getting out there and doing all that when you can't accept that it's something that you enjoy doing? So there was loads of points like that where I was like, stop, take a big deep breath, have a wee look run about you. The weather's magic. You are just running. That is all you're just get and run. So I was having to kind of take stock of that. But there was a day when I got heat stroke actually, and I never ate, and I started being sick at about mile 25 and mile 30.
Yep.
And as you know, yeah, at that point, you've done quite a bit, and you've still got maybe 5-10 miles to go where you're like, oof, that was quite tough. But the one, I think the video, and I remember this because we were doing all these wee posts and all these wee videos because a big part of the run was about raising awareness of mental health, raising awareness about the charity. We were trying to raise funds. So that was what that was. It wasn't about Jason running 400 miles. That was that. I was just doing that. But the whole point of that was I'll put myself under a bit of pressure to complete something for a bigger cause, a greater cause. And that was the whole point of that. So I had to keep reminding myself that's what you're doing that for. But I got to 7 and we were obviously doing the wee videos and it was always wee updates. Let's do a wee update. We'll put a post up. You just run again.
Yeah.
And it was always like, hey, so it's day 7 and I'm halfway. And I remember, but we spoke this and Libby was saying like, you look too happy in all your videos. And I'm like, I'm not going to be miserable. Do you know what I mean? But we had a conversation about it and it was like, no, we weren't trying to play up or do anything untoward, but it was like, I was automatically, I could have come in from a run, sweat dripping off me, my head done a wee bit, feeling knackered and thinking, I just want this day done. And as soon as the camera went on, I'm like, yay! And Libby's saying to me, people aren't getting that. People aren't seeing that bit just before I switch the camera on. What they're seeing is you going like, oh, it's like, and they don't realise actually what you're putting yourself under and what this is doing to you, like physically and mentally, because you keep... And I don't mean that bad. I think it was just an automatic thing. Like subconsciously, as soon as like we did a wee video, I was wanting to be smiling and happy and cheery. And we got to day 7 and we went to do a wee video in the morning and I just had this really low point. I was missing the kids. It's the longest I think I'd ever been away from them. I was still miles and miles away from home. I still had 3 full days of running to go. And I was like, fuck, this is just torture now. I was actually getting fed up it, do you know what I mean? And I was like, and I remember her saying, let's do a video. And I was like, no.
Ram it up, you know.
Aye, do you know something? No, let's no bother. She's like, no, let's just do a wee video. Just do your wee, we've done one every day to say this is day 7, whatever. I was like, right, go for it. And the minute the words came out of my mouth that I had started a week ago, it was like this pure surge of emotion. I was like, I'm pure. I can't believe this.
Yeah, I remember that one well.
And I just welled up, and I was like, and I started thinking about the kids. I started thinking about how long I've been doing it for. I'd actually been even thinking what I've achieved so far. I've actually ran like maybe 280 miles or something like that. And I was like, whoa, right, stop, can't do it. No, I try again. So I went to go again. Right, I've been running for 7 days and I started blubbering and I was like, I can't do this. I just can't, I can't get the words out. We need to stop. So I tried one more time. I think I kind of mumbled my way through some of that. Right, just let me run, let me go, because I can't be doing this. And actually, that morning was one of the best runs I had. It was amazing. It was like in the Lake District, and it was up over all these hills and fields, loads of trail. It was an amazing run, and I actually really enjoyed the run. And when I was doing it, I remember saying to Libby about the video, I was like, don't be putting any of that out because that's embarrassing. Because that's how I felt. I felt like I'm not wanting everybody to see me looking like that. She's like, no, that is what you're feeling. That is you. That isn't the false videos, but the ones that you're doing where you're putting on a smile for the camera. Don't do that. And that gets so many like views and likes, and it's the one that people always say to me they remember seeing.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I suppose I get that because it was real, and I think that was one where I probably was about the most emotional I'd been in the whole journey, and
it fit the context of what it was all about. I think it suddenly it all became, because I think you were quite I don't know what day it was. What day was it when our video you joined my live?
That was the next day. That was the next morning.
So there you go. So I think I was tuning in because there was something, I can't remember exactly what was happening. I had been caught up in something. I remember saying to you, I had just finished the weekend before something on my own, and I started tuning in. You were already well underway. And I was like, I remember having a kind of holy shit moment. I think it was at a run or something. And I was like, I think I probably come back and I said to Danny, I went, Jason's, and I was like, boo. I went, so I starts pushing it on fads, which because those boys, I was like, they're going to feed off of this because I know what that community is like. I was like, they're going to feed off of this, and then suddenly I started getting caught up in it, and then I'm on this live, and I think I'd seen that one that we're talking about, and then your name appears, and I went, Jason's there, let's get him on. And I was like, wow, I was feeding off it, and you were there, and it was it was incredible.
You couldn't have timed that any better because I didn't even have much signal because it was the sort of Lake District and we'd been in the middle of nowhere. And as I said, like each morning I would just have a quick scan through the kind of messages I was getting. And I'll tell you this quick story, I'll tell you this really quickly, but there was a guy started following me and he'd actually seen, I think somebody had shared it on a page, a kind of running community page or something. I had seen it. So he had been messaging me saying he was going to try and meet me. And it was really unfortunate. I got lost and ended up, I didn't know like majorly lost, but it held us up a wee bit and it was roasting. It was so warm this day and it just slowed me right down, Kev. It was like the sweat, like everything was just getting taken out of me. And I was like really, really behind schedule and I missed him. He said he couldn't run, but he was trying to meet me, even just to get a catch up and a wee blether. Do you know every morning, after maybe day 2 or 3, he would send me a big long message and it would just be like a story or something that's happened with him or something that was connected to running or life in general. And it would just be this big long screed. And I started looking forward to get up in the morning to see if he'd sent me this. And it was unbelievable. We've stayed in touch and we've messaged each other backwards and forwards ever since.
Wow.
It was one of these things and I thought, that struck a chord with me. And I've said to him, like, you've no idea. I was getting a lot of messages, obviously, and I'm really, really grateful for them because they spurred me on and it made me remember what I was doing it for. Because there's easily days, as you know, when you can just chuck the till. There was times when I kind of just went, that's enough for me. I was sore every day. People ask you that, were you sore? Aye, 100%. Bits. Every night I was getting in and just like hobbling about, and then I was getting up in the morning and going again. But they wee messages and the things that he was sending me every day were just re-inspiring things. Because there was another one there was a video, there was a couple of kind of celebrity type ones people had sent in. Libby had kind of reached out and there was 2 or 3 of them that were amazing to get. But there was a couple of people that had actually been helped with the charity. And one, Lizzie, who I've spoke to her, I've met Lizzie a few times, I even interviewed her actually, and her son took his own life. And she was just giving me this wee message to say, this is why you're doing this. You're helping families. And I was like, fucking keep, I can't watch that now. Don't show me that later. So, all the wee things were things that made me go to myself, you're doing this for a reason. This is what, and I think is the Sinek book says, what is your why? Do you know, you've always got to have a why. And I know you speak about that. And my why was, I've said I'm going to do something, so I'm going to do it. Right reason or none. And I'm doing it for a reason. I'm doing it to raise awareness. I'm doing it to raise funds, and I'm doing it to try and help folk, I suppose. So when you've got your why, it's difficult to keep.
What's your why now, Jason?
Why to keep? I suppose I've found a sort of. I've found I don't know if a comfort's the right word, but I've found a strength in myself. Maybe a comfort in knowing that I can push myself, that I can keep going. And the more I challenge myself and the more I have a drive to do that, I'm not always saying to better yourself. Maybe that is part of it, but it's more about, can you keep doing it? And I know there's eventually going to be a point when I can't push any further. There's going to be a point where I might be injured or too old or too crippled to be able to keep going. But while I can, I'm going to keep pushing. And it's that, I think it's that drive to be able to say, I can do that. And see if I can, I'll give it my best shot.
Do you think that why that you're describing to me? Because I think that this is me. That'll be controversial here, right? I feel that probably sells you short. I think that's one part of you. That why describes the Jason who takes on challenges and stuff. See, when you think about your why in terms of the overall, the greater purpose, the greater power above you, what are you drawn to? What do you think? What's your compass, Jace?
I hope this doesn't come across as a kind of cheesy thing at all, because it's not. 100%. I've found a lot of comfort in helping other folk, and that is a genuine statement that it's helped me. So see me being able to like do stuff like this, like tell my story and speak about it, because I was embarrassed about it, Kev. I said that to you, like I wouldn't have spoken to people, I wouldn't have told people because I was embarrassed. And I found that telling my story wasn't so that other people knew about me, it was about other people knowing that it's all right. And places that I went wrong could be places that they could find out where I went wrong, so that it doesn't happen to them. Don't get to that stage where you don't think you've got an option or somewhere to turn, because I've found the more I've spoke about it, the more people open up to, the more people I reach out to, and doing things through the charity or through my work, you get something out of that. Like you 100% get something out of being able to say, I've helped somebody. I've actually went out there to help somebody. And I'm not saying we can save everybody, but can we save somebody's life? Can we make a difference to folk? And if we can, then that for me is a massive drive, 100%.
And I love that. I'm going to put this out there just for the benefit of people to understand this. Jason knows, I'm passionate about goals, and the goals and the why stuff is massive to me. And it wasn't always, and now where I'm in my life now, I totally get it. And I'll say that one of my goals for 2022, I had quite a clear fitness goal, I had quite a clear professional development goal, and my third goal was about giving back. And for those who don't understand why, who's maybe listening to this, is why Jason would have that as his why. You will struggle to find what is something that will match the internal feeling that you will get when you have helped someone or given back simply because it's the right thing to do. They talk about internally and externally motivated values. And again, this is controversial for people who are just filled with externally motivated values. They want to, where they were in the rat race, how much of this they've got, how rich they are, how important they are, how many followers they've got. Those things won't bring you internal happiness. But when you talk about giving back and making people feel good, and the things that Jason's been involved in the last couple of years, I personally know that there is nothing makes you feel better about yourself than knowing that you're making a difference somewhere, even if people don't even know that you are that person. That even makes it even more valuable. But it is incredible, and I love that you're talking about that as your why, because not enough people know. People are thinking that it's all about, you're going to feel good. And it's true, you'll feel good if you're doing your sport and you're doing your things and you're rich in life because you're doing really, really. But wow, you should practice that trait of giving back and doing good things because it's the right thing to do. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
Right. I'm not saying it's never been my thing, but certainly over the past few years, I've found I've had a great comfort in knowing that maybe what I do are things that I'm doing will help others, and if people get something in it, then that's why we do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, be pointless me standing up talking about my story or talking about me just for people to say, "Well done, Jason, you're some guy." Do you know, that's not what it's about. It's about can I use that as a vehicle for other people to see change, and hopefully it does. Hopefully that's why.
I think it does. I think it does, and I think you explain it really well. I think that I'd like to ask you, because I know that other people will be keen to, and actually I'll take it a step further. Certainly one of the guys that I spend a bit of time running with and stuff like that. Actually, a few people were aware I was going to be speaking to you about this, and he says I'd like to know this, and so I'm going to sort of put that to you as a question. What people are maybe looking at and listening to is Jason McGinn, who's now on top of his shit. Right, so this is Jace, who runs a lot, he does challenges, he does back Onside, he's talking about his mental health in the past. I know you well enough to know, like me, the shit still hits the fan, and we have our dark days like others. For people listening or watching, when the shit starts to hit the fan, what's your steps? How do you stop what could become a really bad situation developing, or how do you stop maybe a day becoming a month or things like that? Where do you go? What do you do?
So that's a good point. As you can have a bad day, try not to make it a bad week. If you're having a bad week, try not to make it a bad fortnight. Do you know what I mean? So try and recognizing when you're starting to feel that way, or when you're starting to I close in a lot. I kind of shut everybody down. And I know this sounds mad because I gave you all this advice about opening up and speaking. I close in, close the books, and because I know I can sometimes not be a great person to be around, and I can feel that coming on. I try my very best not to do that. So see if I do start to feel I'm closing in and I'm shutting folk out, and the social media has gone quiet, and I stop and I can be a wee bit of a kind of narky person, so I don't like that. But one thing that I will do is I'll try to maintain a kind of good conversation with at least one person. So open that up and just say, like, if I know I'm going to be like that, and I've got a couple of people that I know I can do that way, and I know that that's a way for me to say, right, you're not going to just go into yourself and shut everybody out. Just keep up a wee, and even if it's just checking in with somebody, even though what I'm actually doing is making them check in on me. So I'm doing that. So, how's things? Hi, how are you? Brilliant. And like, but I just need to keep that. I need to try and keep that. What I've learned, and what I think a lot of people might struggle with is acceptance. And by that, what I mean is, I've now come to accept that, see, maybe every so often as a cycle of behaviour, every so often I'm going to hit that.
Yep.
And what I need to accept is there doesn't need to be a trigger, there doesn't need to be something's happened in my life. There might just be a point where I don't feel myself and I feel a bit shit. So that's an acceptance thing. Understand that that's happening, because see, if you know that that's going to happen, you can accept that you're going to have a wee period like that, and it makes it a wee bit easier to manage. Because see, if you think you're doing great and life's rosy, see when that hits you and you've not been expecting it, then that's when it becomes really difficult to manage. So acceptance is a big part of that, is saying, right, I know that's coming, and see when it does come, let's not board up the house and don't speak to anybody for a couple of weeks. So that's one thing. I try to maintain, as I said earlier on, the things that I know work for me. So putting on my trainers and going out a run, getting to the gym, do the things that would normally just release the tension for a wee bit. So these are all things that are key, that you should always be doing. But when you feel things coming on, just do it. See, if you get in for your work, and you get up in the morning and you feel that wee bit of stress, do something that helps you release it, whatever that is for you. Because obviously, not everybody's going to get up at 5:30 in the morning and go a run. But if you feel that that's for you, do it, right? Because you've got to maintain these things, and also be all right with yourself. Don't try not to get. I've found again in the past where I actually start to get angry with myself. You shouldn't be feeling like this. You've done all these things. Stop it. Allow it to happen. It's all right. It's okay to have shit days and shit weeks. That's all right. That's part of life and it's part of who we are. So I think, one, acceptance, understand that you might have times like that, and that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that because we can all go through it. Find the things that you know work normally and emphasising them. So make sure you get out your run. Don't ignore it because you're not feeling that great. And I know these are things for me, so it's no things for everybody, but these are pointers because I know some people might find that time they don't want to do anything and it's really, really difficult. But if you can, try that wee bit harder that week. Try that wee bit harder. And speak to folk. Yep. Just let people know. As I said, like I say I'm checking in on folk. No, what I'm doing is I'm getting them to check in on me. So I'll send a wee text and hopefully they get back to me. And that's the thing. I often find that I'm very negative at everything during that wee period. So I'll go through that wee period where I've maybe not heard from somebody. Although maybe a group text goes out or a group chat fires up and I feel a bit left out. And that's in me. That's my thoughts. That's not what's happening. So you need to remember that as well. What's actually happened? What like has somebody not reached out to you, and have you not reached out to them as well? Have you just not spoke to each other? Has everybody just been a bit busy? Because you start to make it up differently. You start to say, he's stopped liking my Facebook post, he's not doing that. So that's another thing. It's just about being mindful that your thoughts aren't reality. They are just thoughts. Don't let them overtake everything else. So just having a wee bit of time for yourself.
So much to take away from that. I love that. I've been guilty of that in the past as well. Like, you're like, you've kind of got this image that you're the person that's out there as this like ambassador. You're promoting positive mental health. In particular, for me, it was a sort of chip in my shoulder, but a noose, if you like. That you certainly for men, and so I would be the guy that would be doing the check-in post, would be doing all this, but I'm like, I would never ever put down what mine was, and I would never be actually, who am I checking in on, who am I sort of saying where I was, and it sort of just became this thing for years, and I was like, I did sort of actually have a proper word with myself about, hold on a minute, what are you doing here? Why are you building this aura that you don't need? You're no vulnerable, you're not having days where your mental health is in question. And I love what you're saying there about your go-to items. The thing about your go-to items, the things that will get you out of that situation, they're the last thing you want to do when you feel like shit, but they're the only thing you must do. You must find a way. People say to me, like, how the hell do you go out the door at that time in the morning? Jason and I would get mistaken for milk robbers in the mornings because of the time we run it. But people say, how the hell do you do that? And I'm like, because there is no other option. Yeah. If I don't do that, I will not start my day right. And if I know in particular my day is going to be difficult, then not doing that thing is detrimental to me. So you become sort of really disciplined at forcing through it, because you know what waits you on the other side. And the last thing that I was thinking about when you were talking a minute ago, there's a lot of people who slag this off, like when I say this, when they hear it. But Jason mentioned his name earlier on. I'm about 2/3 of the way through the new Goggins book. Now, I was really looking forward to, because I loved his first book, and I was really looking forward to his second book coming out. And he's not for everyone. So, for anyone who hates Goggins and the way, but I like this guy's a survivor, but what he talks about as a beautiful piece in the book where he talks about taking a knee. Never be afraid of taking a knee. The reason I was asking Jason loads about the moments where the shit hits the fan, stuff like that, it's been sticking in my mind since I heard David Goggins talking about this. sometimes it's okay just to take a knee. For those who understand like the martial arts or boxing sort of language, when you take a knee, it's you taking a moment just to go, right, I'm not where I need to be right now.
Yep.
Clear my head, get the fuck up, and let's keep going. Because the alternative is I'm out and I don't want to be out. I'm not out of this yet. And he talks about it. He talks about it in the context of like ultra running and or when he's really, really deep in a huge challenge where he just takes a knee, take a moment where you just compose your fucking head and say, where am I? It's never as bad as I believe it is. You know, it's like I'm not dead. You know, I'm still in this. I am my my back's against the wall. I'm deep in this, but I will and I must pull through. And I loved it, Jason. I loved it.
I love a lot of what he's got to say, and I mean, he is, as you say, he's not everybody's cup of tea. I know that, but listen, see at the end of the day, what sets him apart and what sets a lot of people apart is that will to never give up, to just keep going. And exactly what you say, it's like this whole thing, like if you've got a why and if you've got a reason to keep going, you'll find that people say to me about the whole thing about like, how do you manage to run that far? To see if you had the right reasons, you would do it as well. It's not about like I'm no different. We're just normal human beings. I'm no superhuman. I can't run like I'm not like Kipchoge. I can't run like a sub-2 marathon and like that. I'm no, and he's a human as well. We just get great genes and a fast pair of shoes. But do you know what I mean? No, it's about, can you just dig deep and keep going and see if you can, you will, and you will find a way and you'll keep doing it. And it's the same for the mental health side of things.
Yeah.
Dig deep, think about why. There's always going to be a reason. There's always going to be somebody. And I always say this, like another thing we spoke about when you get into a room and you speak to folk and like that, introduce yourself. What are you? Oh, I'm Jason, a police officer. Well, no, you're a son, you're a father, you're a partner, a wife, that's what you are. Whatever that is an occupation. Like, so we're all these things before we're anything else. We're sons, daughters, wives, husbands. That's what we are. We're here for other people as well. So I think that there's a big part of that. That's a big why that I think a lot is neglect. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
It just how important we are for someone out there and the important role that we play. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, right. Wow, we could keep this going, you know, but I mean, it's been what I think we've scratched the surface of just some of this stuff, and I know for a fact that this will be a real good conversation for someone to listen to, you know, maybe when they're just sort of zoning out, or maybe they're out a run, or maybe they're in the car, whatever it is. You know, I think we absolutely need to revisit this, you know, part 2 and come back to it. I can't thank you enough for joining me, Jason. It's made for a brilliant chat on episode 1 of the Mind Masters podcast. You know, I've loved it. I've loved every second of it. I had to actually just check the time there and go, right, I probably should wrap this, because I know what we're like. This was like what we were like the first time we did it on yours, and we could have just kept going.
Very constant.
But no, as I say, I really, really appreciate it, mate, and I really, really appreciate your honest insight into it. There'll be a lot of people that have ups and downs and dark days and moments where they're questioning where they are when they're facing adversity and stuff. And I think your insight's going to help them massively.
Hopefully that's the whole point. I know that's Kevin. As I said, I really appreciate you getting me on and give me a chance to speak about that, and hopefully people listen back and get something out of it.
Yeah, so for anyone that's, you know, just to close it off, anyone that is interested to hear more about the charity that Jason works closely with, I would be criminal not to plug it again. It's a fantastic charity, back Onside. You'll find them in all the socials. They do some wonderful work in the subject of mental health. You know, the social media is really, really good. It's since I would become aware of it through Jason, I've really, really enjoyed it. If you like what you've been watching or you like what you've listened to, please, you know, share it, pass it on to your friends, let people know about it. And we will continue each month to try and bring, you know, really good, engaging, raw conversations on the subjects of mindset and mental health. But yeah, apart from that, it's just to say thanks, Jason, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks very much, mate. Hopefully we'll catch up for a run soon.
Yeah.